The FBI apparently raided the Maryland home of John Bolton, formerly Trump's national security advisor, and the latest example of Donald Trump just explicitly and corruptly turning the DOJ into his personal political hit squad. Going after his opponents, people who he disagrees with, people who criticize him. That's what they're there for. The FBI has been lowered to this sorry state. And their excuse for doing this, and who knows, maybe they'll have something, is that John Bolton might have been keeping classified documents there that weren't supposed to be there. And it's funny because I remember being told for years that the FBI shouldn't be raiding people looking for classified documents. Evidently, that just applies to the non-billionaires. Now, we don't know exactly what the classified documents are in reference to. I'm hoping for the Epstein files, though. Maybe that's where they've been hanging out, but probably not. What you need to know about John Bolton is that he is a critic of Donald Trump. He wrote a book last year, was very critical of Trump. More recently, he's been very critical of Donald Trump's strange, submissive relationship with Vladimir Putin. And so Donald Trump hasn't liked any of this. And now we have this raid. I want to remind everyone before we jump into the specifics that literally one of the first things Donald Trump did when he got sworn into office was to take away the security details of a number of the people that he doesn't like, but John Bolton was one of them. And what you should know is that, like Donald Trump, John Bolton has faced very credible evidence that the Iranians might want to take him out. And Donald Trump knows that, and he's like, good, I'm gonna take away a security detail, and maybe that'll happen. Meanwhile, Pete Hegseth is gonna have 500 agents defending him and every woman who's had the misfortune of being involved in him. So, weird priorities from the administration. But FBI Director Kash Patel, who led this thing, tweeted, "No one is above the law." Which isn't, of course, true. We know that. And I'm not even just talking about Donald Trump and what the Supreme Court did. I mean, you might know recently that even MAGA was angry after the Trump administration let an Israeli official charged with child sex rings flee the US. That's Tom Alexandrovich, a senior Israeli cybersecurity official who'd been arrested in an undercover sting targeting child sex predators. And they let him keep his passport, and he paid $10,000 bail and fled the country, and that's it. I'm sure he'll slide right back into the Israeli government. They're not gonna care there. And look, to be fair, we've begged the Trump administration for consistency on anything, and I suppose they are now consistently protecting child predators. So I guess that's something, I suppose. But you can't really claim that nobody is above the law when lots of people that you like are certainly above the law. Now, Donald Trump was asked about this raid, and here's what he had to say.
They'll brief me, probably today sometime.
And the foreign minister.
I don't want to, I tell Pam and I tell the group, I don't want to know, but just you have to do what you have to do. I don't want to know about it. It's not necessary. I could know about it. I could be the one starting it. I'm actually the chief law enforcement officer, but I feel that it's better this way.
Yeah, so sort of sounds a little bit like when he was talking about pardoning Ghislaine Maxwell. Like, oh no, I didn't know anything about it. It's just, I could totally do it though. If I wanted to, I could do it. And he goes on to say, and look, we all know he told them to do it. He 100% told them to do it. He said of John Bolton in response to this, he's not a smart guy, but he could be a very unpatriotic guy. We're gonna find out. I mean, look, I watched at least one full season of The Sopranos. I know what this is. I know what's going on here. He says, I know nothing about it. I just saw it this morning. They did a raid. That's an obvious lie. And I want you to consider when they raided Donald Trump, not for suspected classified documents, but because he had many, many classified documents that he had stolen, okay? Imagine if Biden had been asked about it and Biden had said, well, he's a stupid guy. I don't really like him. I'm not a fan of Donald Trump. Can you freaking imagine what they would have said? They would have been right to say that he's putting his thumb on the scales of justice. Now, Donald Trump is just doing the same exact thing. And there's no evidence yet that John Bolton actually had anything. We'll see. But Donald Trump did have boxes and boxes of documents he intentionally stole. And so this is how it works. This is what our government is. Brett, what do you think?
So I don't like John Bolton very much. Do I like how he looks? Do I like how he looks? Yes. He's one of the most attractive, most fashionable people that I have ever seen. Look at him, he's an Adonis. He knows how to grow a stash and he knows how to keep strategic portions of his hair or have them replaced with ancient hair replacement technology. No one's saying we don't like how John Bolton looks. We're saying we don't like his policies. Now, there are some tactics that you can employ as president of the United States where you choose your enemies in such a way where just by virtue of the fact that you're saying this guy bad, you are perceived to be the opposite of him and thus good. In this scenario, however, this is like the enemy of my enemy isn't my friend. They're both stupid enemies. I don't think that John Bolton and having declared that as the policy I am employing, I now am free to be the opposite of a hypocrite, to be consistent in executing what I think is important. I think it's fine to raid someone's house if they have secret documents. That's why I thought it was fine for Donald Trump. I like the way they did it originally when the Justice Department was like, can you please bring the documents here that we know you have? And he was like, no, I never will. And they're like, well, we'll have to raid you. Like, I'm not giving them back. So then they raid him. That is a perfectly fine process. This process, however, employed by Donald Trump is one where he very clearly seems to have a vendetta against John Bolton. So while I don't think he should be hoarding these classified documents, I think that's bad. But like, this came out of absolutely nowhere.
Yeah.
And when that happens, the same as when there is a culture war, you need to check to see what you've been distracted from. And you are being distracted from the fact that the economy is tanking, the jobs reports, he not only hates because they're bad, he is hiding them.
Yeah.
By getting rid of someone whose job was just to be like, here's the number, and replacing them with someone who'll be like, I'll do whatever. And even if it wasn't Donald Trump calling for the raiding of John Bolton's house, it's like a self-driving machine at this point where you know that at least someone within the Trump aura thinks that Trump will like it.
Yeah.
And that's why they do it. That and many more other things.
Yeah, I mean, look, you don't put Kash Patel in this position or Pam Bondi because you want justice.
Right.
Nobody thinks that. The right doesn't even think that. They want vengeance. They want vengeance as much as Donald Trump does, which is why when we cover this story, I don't cover it thinking that like this is one of the things that's going to get through to MAGA. It's not like I need to convince them that the DOJ has become just a political tool of the president. They want it to be. They like that. It's terrible for us. It's a reminder of how important it is to get them the hell out of power. But I'll also say, Bolton's not the only one. One of the Fed governors is Lisa Cook. They're attempting to build a criminal case against her over what they see as mistakes in her mortgage paperwork. They want to lock her up to get her out of that position, or at the very least, they want to threaten to throw her in prison so she will step down rather than keep in this position, which she should be in for many years. And so it's just any disagreement, like we need to get rid of her because we think it'll help us get a little bit closer to taking over the Fed and doing rate cuts that'll eventually tank the economy, but might make Donald Trump look briefly better for a short period. Yeah, no, we'll lock her up. Whatever, it doesn't matter, we don't care. And again, nobody in MAGA is gonna care about that. But I will also say, and I could be wrong, before we move on to our next story, I'm pretty sure that it can't get worse than the 4 years we're in right now, right? Like, I mean, surely there's no way. I mean, I remember the Bush years and I remember thinking it couldn't get worse than that. And I was wrong, evidently it can, but it can't get worse than this, right? I'm not saying it can't get worse in the Trump years, it certainly will. But once we get through this, right?
The question is whether Trump's a singular talent.
Yeah,
like,
but so far I think it is. I think there's no reason to believe that it isn't a singular talent. I don't think. Ron DeSantis wanted to do the same thing. He couldn't do it. I don't think JD Vance is a convincing stand-in for him. We'll see. We'll see. That's a larger conversation we'll have in the members' content someday. But I know everybody's saying it can always get worse. I know.